Welcome to Real English Voices. I'm Tom.
And I am Ria. It is so good to have you here with us today.
Today we are tackling a topic that I think every single language learner on the planet has struggled with at some point. It is the classic problem. You learn a new word, you understand it perfectly, you repeat it a few times, and you feel great about it.
And then 2 days later, you're in the middle of a conversation, you reach for that word, and it is gone. Just completely vanished. It is the most frustrating feeling in the world, isn't it?
It really is. It is like reaching into your pocket for your keys and realizing there is a hole in the pocket. The keys fell out miles ago. Today, we are going to talk about how to sew up that hole. We are going to talk about how to actually remember new vocabulary so that it sticks with you forever, not just for 5 minutes.
I love that analogy, Tom, the hole in the pocket, because that is exactly what it feels like. I remember when I was learning French in school, I used to have these long lists of vocabulary. I would spend hours memorizing them. Apple is pomme. House is maison. I would cover one side and try to say the other. I thought I was doing such a good job.
Let me guess, you aced the test on Friday, and by Monday morning, you couldn't remember half of them.
Exactly. It was like my brain had a reset button. I felt so stupid, honestly. I thought, maybe I'm just not good at languages. Maybe my memory is bad. But looking back, I realize it wasn't my brain that was the problem. It was my method.
That is such an important point to start with. If you are listening to this and you feel like you have a bad memory, please stop telling yourself that. Your memory is fine. Your brain is actually designed to forget things that it thinks are useless. If you just give your brain a list of random words without any context, your brain says, well, this looks like junk data. Delete.
Right. Our brains are efficient. They're trying to save space. So the secret to remembering words isn't about forcing your brain to hold on to junk. It's about convincing your brain that this new word is actually a treasure. It's important. It matters.
So how do we do that? How do we tell our brains that a word is important?
I think the first and biggest thing is context. We hear this word a lot in language learning circles, but what does it actually mean? For me, it means never, ever learning a word alone. A word shouldn't be an island. It needs to be part of a sentence, a story, or a situation.
I completely agree. Think about how you meet people. If you walked down a busy street and passed 100 strangers, you wouldn't remember any of their faces 5 minutes later. But if you met one person and you had a coffee with them and they told you a crazy story about their childhood, you would remember that person for years. Words are the same. A list is just a crowd of strangers. A sentence is a conversation.
That is beautiful. I love that. So, practically speaking, let's say I encounter a new word. Let's say the word is bewildered. It means very confused. Instead of just writing bewildered equals confused in my notebook, what should I do?
Well, first you need to link it to a reality you understand. Who was bewildered? When were you bewildered? If I just write the definition, it's dry. But if I write, I was completely bewildered when I tried to assemble the furniture from IKEA without instructions, now I have a scene. I have an emotion.
Yes, and I can visualize you sitting on the floor, surrounded by screws and pieces of wood, looking totally confused. That image sticks. So, rule number one is always write the word in a sentence. Ideally, a sentence that is true for you personally.
Personal connection is huge. If you can make the sentence about your life, your family, your dog, or your job, your brain holds on to it tighter. It's called the self-reference effect. We remember things better when they relate to us.
I do that all the time. I actually talk to myself a lot when I'm learning. If I learn a word like delicious, I won't just say the sentence from the textbook. I'll say, my mother's chocolate cake is delicious, because I can taste that cake. The memory is multisensory.
That leads us perfectly into the next technique, which involves getting weird.
Getting weird. Okay, explain that one.
Well, the brain loves novelty. It loves things that are strange, funny, or shocking. It ignores the boring stuff. So, if you want to remember a difficult word, sometimes you have to create a bizarre mental image or a funny association.
Oh, I know what you mean, like mnemonics?
Exactly, but not just formal mnemonics, just silly mental pictures. For example, let's take a simple word that beginners might struggle with. Let's say the word is beach. Most people know this, but imagine you didn't. You could imagine a giant peach sitting on the sand by the ocean. A peach on the beach. It rhymes, it's a weird image, and it's hard to forget.
I love that. A giant peach wearing sunglasses.
Precisely. The sillier, the better. If you are laughing at your own mental image, you are learning. Emotion, even if it is just amusement, acts like glue from memory.
I remember I had a hard time with the word procrastination. It is such a long word. I kept forgetting it. Then I imagined a pro athlete, like a soccer player, crashing into a station because he was late. Pro, crash, station. It didn't make any logical sense, but the story of the athlete crashing because he waited too long helped me remember the sound and the meaning.
That is brilliant, and it shows that you don't have to be an artist. The image happens in your head. Nobody else needs to see it. It is your secret code.
So we have context, making sentences about ourselves, and using funny or weird visualizations. But Tom, what about the timing? Because I feel like I can do all of this. Memorize the word today, and I still might forget it next week if I don't look at it again.
You are hitting on the scientific side of things now. This is where most people fail. They do the work once and they think they're done. But memory fades. There is something called the forgetting curve. It was discovered a long time ago. Basically, you forget almost everything you learn within 24 hours unless you review it.
That is depressing.
It sounds depressing, but it is actually empowering because we know how to beat it. You have to interrupt the forgetting. You need to review the word right before you're about to forget it.
Is this what people call spaced repetition?
Yes, that is the term. But let's keep it simple. It just means reviewing things at increasing intervals. So you learn a word today, you review it tomorrow, then you don't look at it for 3 days. Then you review it again. Then you wait a week, then a month.
So you're stretching out the time between reviews.
Exactly. Because every time you have to work a little bit to pull that memory back up, the pathway in your brain gets stronger. If I tell you the answer every 5 minutes, your brain gets lazy. But if I wait until you almost forgot and you have to say, oh, wait, what was that word? Oh, yeah, bewildered. That struggle, that effort creates a deep memory.
That is so interesting. It's like lifting weights. If the weight is too light, you don't build muscle. If the recall is too easy, you don't build memory. You need that little bit of struggle.
Spot on. And you don't have to manage this schedule manually with a calendar. There are apps that do this, or you can just use a simple shoebox method with flashcards, but the principle is what matters. Review, wait, review. Wait longer.
I think the wait part is hard for people. We want to cram. We want to study the same list for 5 hours one day and then never look at it again. But it sounds like 5 minutes a day for a month is better than 5 hours in one day.
Absolutely. Consistency beats intensity every single time. It is better to clear a little path in the forest every day so it becomes a road rather than hacking through the jungle for one day and then letting the weeds grow back for a month.
I want to talk about the fear aspect, Tom, because sometimes we remember the word when we're alone, but when we're speaking to someone, we freeze. We're afraid to use the new word because we might pronounce it wrong or use it in the wrong context.
That is the final piece of the puzzle, active usage. You cannot just be a collector of words. You have to be a user of words. Words are tools. If you buy a hammer and leave it in the box, you will never learn how to build anything. You have to take it out and swing it.
And sometimes you hit your thumb.
Sometimes you hit your thumb. You will make mistakes. You will say a word and realize it wasn't quite right. But guess what? That moment of making a mistake is actually one of the best ways to learn. If you use a word wrong and someone gently corrects you, or you see a confused look on their face, you will never forget that word again. The emotional impact of the mistake burns it into your memory.
That is so true. I still remember mistakes I made years ago. They act like warning signs now. But how can people practice using words if they don't have a speaking partner right there?
Talk to yourself. We mentioned this earlier, but I cannot stress it enough. Narrate your life. If you're cooking, say, I'm chopping the onions, I'm sautéing the garlic. If you learn a new word like exhausted, look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I am absolutely exhausted.
I do that. I also talk to my cat. She's a great listener. She never corrects my grammar, which is a confidence booster.
Pets are the best language partners. But seriously, writing helps too. Keep a journal. If you learned 5 new words this week, challenge yourself to write a short story using all 5 of them. It doesn't have to be a good story. It can be nonsense. But the act of weaving those words together forces your brain to understand how they fit into the structure of the language.
I like the challenge idea. It makes it a game. And I think that is the overall vibe we need to have. Learning words shouldn't feel like a chore or a punishment. It should be like collecting treasures or solving a puzzle.
Right. Curiosity is your best fuel. When you see a new word, don't just look at the definition. Look at the synonyms. Look at the opposite. Play with it. Ask yourself, does this word sound like a happy word or a sad word?
Speaking of happy and sad words, do you think emotions play a big role? Like, do we remember positive words better than negative ones?
That is a fascinating question. I think we remember emotionally charged words better, regardless of whether they are positive or negative. Words like love, hate, furious, thrilled, these stick because they carry energy. Words like however, therefore, consequently, these are abstract. They are harder to stick because they don't have an emotional picture.
So for those abstract words, those grammar words, we really need to rely on the sentence context.
Yes, you have to see them in action. You can't visualize nevertheless. But you can visualize a situation where everything went wrong, nevertheless, you were still happy. You attach the abstract word to a concrete situation.
Tom, I want to go back to something you said about not learning too many words at once. I feel like I am guilty of this. I get ambitious. I want to learn 20 words a day. Is there a magic number?
The magic number is whatever you can sustain. But for most people, 5 words a day is huge. Think about it. 5 words a day is nearly 2,000 words a year. That is enough to be fluent in most daily conversations. If you try to learn 20 or 30 a day, you burn out. It's the leaky bucket again. You are pouring in too much water and it's all spilling over the sides.
That puts it in perspective. 5 words sound so easy, but doing it every single day is the challenge.
Small steps. That is the secret to everything.
I want to share one more tip that really helped me. It's about being a detective. When I'm reading a book or watching a movie and I hear a word I don't know, I don't always look it up immediately. I try to guess. I look at the situation, I look at the actor's face. I try to figure it out from the clues.
Active engagement. You're not just receiving the answer, you're fighting for it a little bit. And when you finally do check the dictionary and realize you were right, or even close, that dopamine hit helps lock the memory in.
And if I'm wrong, well, I learned something.
Exactly. So let's recap a little bit for our listeners, because we have covered a lot of ground.
We started with the idea that your memory isn't broken, your method just needs a tweak.
Right. We talked about ditching the isolated lists. No more lists of random words.
We talked about context, putting words into sentences that are personal to you, making them about your life, your feelings, your experiences.
We discussed visualization, making weird, funny, or exaggerated mental images to hook that word into your brain.
Then we covered the timing, spaced repetition, reviewing the word just before you forget it, and stretching out those review sessions over time.
And finally, active usage. Speaking the word, writing the word, making mistakes with the word, getting it out of your head and into the world.
It sounds like a lot when we list it like that, but it really just becomes a habit, doesn't it? It becomes the way you interact with English.
It does. And the beautiful thing is, the more words you know, the easier it gets to learn new ones, because you have more hooks to hang them on. When you're a beginner, everything is new. But when you're intermediate, you can say, oh, this new word is a synonym for that other word I already know. It connects.
That is so encouraging. The snowball effect, it gets bigger and faster the longer you keep rolling.
Tom, before we finish, I want to ask you something personal. What is your favorite English word? Not because of the meaning, but just because you like how it sounds or how it feels to remember it.
Ooh, that is a fun question. I think I love the word serendipity.
Ah, a classic.
It just sounds nice. It rolls off the tongue, serendipity. And the meaning is lovely too, finding something good without looking for it, like finding money in an old coat pocket.
That is a great word. I think mine is crisp. I like the sound of it. It sounds like what it describes. A crisp apple, a crisp autumn morning. The word snaps in your mouth.
See, this is what we mean. You have feelings about these words. You aren't just data processing. You are enjoying the language.
That is the ultimate secret, isn't it? Enjoyment. If you enjoy the process, if you enjoy the words, you will remember them. If you view English as a giant mountain you have to climb while carrying a heavy backpack, you will be miserable. But if you view it as a garden you are exploring, it is a joy.
I love that. A garden to explore.
So, to everyone listening right now, take a deep breath. You are doing great. If you forgot a word today, it is okay. It is part of the process. Just pick it up again, put it in a sentence, make a funny picture, and keep moving forward.
And try just one of these techniques today. Just one. Pick a new word you heard in this podcast, maybe bewildered or serendipity or procrastination, and write a sentence about yourself. Say it out loud. See if it sticks.
We would love to hear how you go. Language learning is a journey, and it is always better when we walk it together.
Thank you so much for listening to Real English Voices. Keep practicing, keep making mistakes, and keep finding your voice.
See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye!